now that we're a Category 1 academy, wouldn't it be better to do like what Brentford are doing with Romelle Donovan? Keep these players, develop them, either put them into our development squad or loan them out and get more value out of them. And you never know, they could turn into those multi-million pound players. So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. Now, a few days ago, we put out a video where we looked at the loan players that had come into the club and gave our opinions on them and whether we felt that we should try and sign them on a permanent basis or not. And in this podcast, it's a similar type of theme, but this time we're going to look at the players that have gone out on loan to various clubs. And probably ask the question, I suppose, is there a way back to Birmingham City for any of these players? So we'll go through them one by one. I'll get Matt's opinions and then I will give my opinion. And of course, as always, we'd like to have your opinions as well. So please feel free to add comments about your opinions of the players we're going to discuss. So we had 8, actually, Matt, go out on loan.
Yeah.
And we'll start at the very top then with Dion Sanderson. Any thoughts on him?
I think the centre-half position's really strong moving into next season, isn't it, Dad? We've got Clara. He's going nowhere. He's an absolute rock. He's our best. He's the best centre-half I've known down the Blues for a significant amount of time, Clara. Outstanding. We also have Ben Davies. Well, the rumours are we could be signing Ben Davies. We haven't obviously confirmed that yet, but if he does sign, that's another competition. Bielek plays there. We've got Neumann coming in as well. I'll keep this short and simple, Dad. I've never been a massive Dion Sanderson fan. I know he has moments. He has had moments in seasons where he's done okay, but I just can't see any way back for Dion Sanderson, just being brutally honest.
Well, we know that he left to join John Eustace at the time at Blackburn. Just to give you a few stats on him, what he's done at Blackburn. I mean, he went to get more game time, and he's at Blackburn. Now, Blackburn, obviously, he went from the League One to the Championship. He was in the squad 21 times, but he only started 4 times out of those 21. He was substituted in, so he came in off the bench 8 times. So he hasn't had a prolific amount of game time. But I read somewhere that Blackburn are still mulling over whether to take up the option, because I believe the loan deal was for a £1 million buy if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So they're looking at that, I believe, but I don't know what benefit he would have going back to Blackburn. Obviously, he went there, John Eustace. I don't think there's a way back to Birmingham City for him.
No.
I think, like you said, we're very strong in those positions anyway. And Neumann, as an addition, will bring us pace that we sometimes felt that Sanderson lacked.
But not just that, Bielek as a centre half as well, and possibly Ben Davies. You're talking 4th in the queue.
Yeah.
And you know, the standard's getting higher. We're moving to the Championship. Again, I have no hard feelings towards Dion Sanderson, by the way. You know, I've just never been a massive fan of his style of play. I just, that's all it is. I'm not going to jump on no bandwagon about, the history of him at the club and some of those moments which were quite controversial. You know, I'd happily shake his hand and wish him all the best for the future. But for me, I can't see him making a way back in the Blues team.
No, okay. He's 25 years old as well, so he's at that age now where he's got to kick on with his career now.
Yeah.
I back of my mind, I think he'll end up at Derby with John Eustace. So that's what I think as well.
Yeah.
Okay, another bit of an enigma really at Birmingham City. Matt, next is Tyler Roberts. We know that he went to Northampton on loan.
Yeah. The only memory, Dad, that sticks in my mind, whenever someone says Tyler Roberts, kind of like word association, I think that goal we scored against Coventry at home. Do you remember that ball he played for Jay Stansfield? That's kind of like my one real happy memory of Tyler Roberts.
Yeah.
But I think, one, he's too injury prone, and not prolific enough, doesn't create enough chances for me. And again, Dad, we are going to sign, I think, some surprises this summer. And just in my personal opinion, I don't think there's a way back for Tyler Roberts in this team either.
No, there isn't. He was disappointing for us when he did get an opportunity. And like you said, he was so injury prone. He's gone to Northampton, where you'd imagine if he was going to do or show anything, it would have to be a League One team, a struggling League One team.
Yeah.
But
what's staggering, Dad, is he was playing for Leeds United 3 years ago, and he was in the Premier League. He was playing under, was it Bielsa at Leeds? You know, he actually had a very, very bright future ahead and a career ahead, and he's just kind of seemed to have gone down the leagues, and he just hasn't kept that level of consistency, has he?
It's hard to fathom, isn't it? Yeah, well, even for Northampton, and we know Northampton because we've seen them a few times this season. He was in the squad 27 times. He started 21 and substituted 6. So obviously 21 games, a decent amount of games, but he's only scored, how many goals did he score for them? He scored 1 goal and 2 assists.
That's
now,
poor,
for a
isn't it?
striker
Or attacking
at this level, playing that amount of games, clearly that's not good enough. I, based upon those statistics, based upon the fact that there's no way he will get into our squad, he will. I'm not too sure how long he's left on his contract, but I think we'll look to sell him.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Next, Matt, we have George Hall. He went on loan to Walsall.
This is an interesting one for me, George Halder. There's 2 out of the 8 I think are interesting ones. Actually, 3. 3. George Hall's one of them. I think he has bags of potential and ability. Again, I know he had a really unlucky injury, didn't he, in the pre-season? Was it last season? Or
Yeah.
He had quite a bad injury that took him out for quite some time. But he seems to have done okay at Walsall. I mean, the story of Walsall this season is borderline tragic, isn't it? Being top of the league for that amount of time and then slipping out. But they've got Alfie Chang as well, haven't they, at Walsall? So obviously
we'll come on to him
in a minute. But George Hall, I don't know whether because of his age we keep hold of him and send him out on loan for another season to another club. But at our current levels, and again with the investment we're going to make this summer, I can't see him breaking into the first team. So maybe hold on to him and loan him out if Chris Davies and the board and the team think he's got potential for the future because he is still young. But in terms of quality where he is at the minute, I can't see him breaking into the Blues team next season again.
No, and believe it, he's 20. He's been around a long time.
He has, hasn't he?
Seems to have been, but he's only 20 years old. But as you mentioned, he's another player that is very, very vulnerable and prone to injury.
Yeah.
And he had that problem when he went to Walsall. I mean, he had I think it was a hamstring injury or some injury, which took him out from game 20, which was from the 14th of December, and he was out all the way until till March.
Yeah.
So, but he's been in the squad 18 times at Walsall, only been in the starting 11 7 times, and substituted in 7. So he hasn't had a load of game time either there.
Yeah.
And even the games that he has played for Walsall, in fact, he's played the last 7 games. Obviously, he's free from injury now. He has got a goal as well. He scored against Crewe. I think he scored earlier in the season against Notts County as well, and got an assist against Crewe earlier in the season. But looking at his game time, he's getting like in some games half a game. In the last few games, actually, he's played 70 plus minutes for a lot of those games. So I think that Matt Sadler, the manager there, has actually seen what a good player he is. I remember a few years ago when he was 18, I think Leeds United were interested in him. And
I heard 5 million floating around.
Yeah, so there's a player in there. Now, this is my theory, and I'm going to say this for Alfie Chang and when we come to Romelle Donovan. Now that we're a Category 1 academy, wouldn't it be better to do like what Brentford are doing with Romelle Donovan? Keep these players, develop them, either put them into our development squads or loan them out and get more value out of them. You never know, they could turn into those multi-million-pound players.
And this is why I said that hold on to George Hall and loan him out again if he's not quite ready to break into the first team next season. But I like George Hall. Me and you have spoke highly of him on the podcast over previous years. I'll never forget that moment when he came on against Burnley and he bolted down the right-hand side and passed it into Hogan. It was a great goal. We equalised 1-1. They went 1-0 up and they won the league by a country mile that season. So, it was one of those moments where I looked at him and thought he's got potential here. He's got bags of ability, and there's no doubt about it. George Hall's a quality player. Is he good enough to break into our team next season? I don't think he is. But coming back to your point, Dad, about the academy now and the standards rising at the club, hold on to our young players.
Yeah, because if you want to develop assets, and that's the whole principle of the academy, one of the main principles is to add value. Then why sell him now? He's 20. You could easily have another couple of years developing, and then make a decision then at that point. But he could have a good loan spell with where he can prove that he can play for a long period of time without major injury. Is what he needs, and I think that's maybe what we should do. But you don't know whether or not the club might look to sell him, but we'll see. Okay, so then we come on to Emmanuel Longelo.
I'll keep this one short. No chance. In my opinion, he was poor. I know you quite liked him on the left wing, didn't you, Dad, Longelo? And I think a lot of Blues fans could have appreciated his attacking ability a lot better than his defensive ability. But I thought he was poor when he was in the squad, even last season before. Not a huge fan of Longelo. I can't see him getting anywhere near the team.
He hasn't pushed on. That's the problem. Players you want to see kick on, don't you? And when we had him on loan, didn't he, initially from West Ham?
Didn't we get him for £1 million or something? Which at the time was seen as a bargain.
It was less than
was it last night.
I think it was might be 700 or 800 grand or something like that. But he's 24 years old now, and as we know, he went on loan to Cambridge United, and this is the team that one of the teams that really struggled at the bottom of League One, and he's been in the squad 24 times, but only been in the starting lineup 3 times.
It's poor, isn't it?
Now, you'd imagine that for a loan spell from us, a club that is effectively and always were a championship club, even though we were in League One, you'd imagine that Cambridge would have seen him as a bigger asset than that. And the fact that he hasn't pushed himself into their squad, he's not going to get into ours.
Do you know when I realised it, Dad? I mean, I wasn't a massive fan before this anyway, but do you remember when we played Leeds away? It was Rooney's last game.
Yeah.
I was looking at him and watching him in that game. The amount of crosses that Leeds managed to get into the box because he wasn't tracking his man, he wasn't putting a challenge in. In fact, I think Bamford scored against us from a ball that came in from that side, and the goal wasn't Longelo's fault, but it was definitely questionable about his ability to track back from the defensive side of the game. And we've had that a couple of times down the Blues. We had Bakuna was similar, very good technically going forward, but the defensive and the dirty side of the game was really poor. And I think, but nowadays in modern football, you have to have an engine on you. You have to be able to go just as far back as you do go forward if you're a left or a right back. And look at Laird, look at Cochrane.
Yeah.
Outstanding levels of energy back and forward. I mean, when you look at Cochrane, when you look at Cochrane and Laird, Dad, and compare him to someone like Longelo, they're worlds apart.
But he's actually classified as a left back, so he's actually a defender. That's his job, to defend.
Yeah.
And he is expected to move and be like a flying wing back, but his first and priority has got to be defence. And clearly, there's something in him that Blues have not. It's not worked out at Blues. Clearly, it hasn't worked out in Cambridge. I think he will be moved on.
Yeah.
Either I'm not too sure how long's left on his contract. Either he'll be. I believe he'll be probably end. The Blues would probably try to move him on.
I think so.
An interesting one next, Matt, is Ayumu Yokoyama.
I like Yokoyama.
22 years old.
In fact, I was quite surprised when he got sent out on loan because, there was a couple of games at the start of this season where I felt like we needed someone like that to give us something different in games. He's quite direct, he's fast, he takes his man on. And I feel like, in Chris Davis' style of football, when we get in this passing momentum and sometimes we're going back and forward and side to side, Yokoyama gives you a bit more of a direct approach. However, I think it was clear for everyone to see his lack of, would you say experience maybe? I don't know what the word would be, but I felt like sometimes he lost the ball a little bit easy. And again, we're going to talk about defensive tracking back. That sometimes wasn't in the game. So Yokoyama isn't like a perfect player. He's definitely got elements to his game he needs to shape. I like him. I would keep him to see what he can do, maybe coming off the bench in the Championship, because he's got that flair about him, that pace about him. And who knows, he might be able to step up to the next level. We've just spoken about players going down or not really stepping up. He might step up next season, you just don't know. So I think he's worth keeping around and taking a punt on in the Championship.
Well, we went to a club called Young Genk in Belgium, in the Belgian Pro League. And now, to be a complete player, you've got to have it all in today's modern football. You've got to be good going forward. You've got to do your defensive work and everything. And that was my worry with him. There's no doubt that he could open up a game, he could unlock a team, he had the skill and the pace to do that. Yeah. But I suppose watching him quite regularly, we saw him in quite a few games when although I remember Swindon sticks out in my mind when he played virtually the whole game on the right, and he was good going forward. In fact, he scored the one of the goals, but I just feel he gets pushed off the ball too much, and this is the problem I've got with him. Is that there's no doubt that he's a quality, skillful player, but he just gets pushed around too much, and I think that is a real negative. And I think that's what Chris Davis saw, and I didn't think he was good enough to play in a competitive League One. But Championship's even more competitive.
But it is more technical. So players like that tend to do a little bit better. Miyoshi used to get pushed off the ball quite easily, Dad, last season, but he was quite technically gifted and he did all right, And I'm not comparing Japanese for Japanese here. It was a player that came to my mind that got pushed off the ball quite easily last season. I think the defensive side of the game can be taught. If you've got ability, you can't teach ability. You've either got it or you haven't. And Yokoyama does have talent, no doubt about it. You can teach him to defend, in my opinion. Fair enough. It might be, a little bit of development on the training field, doing some drills with him. But I think going forward, he's worth hanging around, even if it's just to come off like 10 minutes in the end of the game, just to absolutely burn the legs off the right back or something. And you said about the Swindon away game, Dad. The game that comes to my mind is Wickham away. Remember the first away game of the season? He came on and did brilliantly.
That was his debut, that was.
Really, really dangerous on that side. And I remember him causing them all sorts of problems. So again, I think he's worth keeping around, I do, at least for another season or half season. And if it doesn't work out by January, send him back out on loan.
Yeah, I just wonder how many games are realistic. How much game time is he going to get in the Championship? I think he needs more development. And if it does mean keeping him, to send him out. But watching one of his compatriots yesterday in the playoff semi-final, Sakamoto. He is also a winger. He's fast, he's pacey, but he doesn't get pushed off the ball that much.
he's a good player,
and he's up and down.
Well, we can't take a throw in.
Oh no! Maybe that's something that that was quite
Was
funny.
it 2 or 3 foul throws?
Well, I saw 2 that I can remember. 2 fouls, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
But for me, I think I think from my view, and you might disagree with that, I think we'll probably look to sell him. I do, but I think a lot of Blues fans will probably think, well, actually, isn't it worth trying to keep him and then see if we can develop him? But I wonder how much time he's going to have to be able to do that in the Championship.
I'm not a professional manager or a coach, so this statement could be complete rubbish. But I think he's got potential that you could mould and develop, and I think he could be a danger. So for me, we've got nothing to lose by keeping him on the books and seeing what he's got.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway,
well, he only went out on loan in January, so he was in the squad 9 times, had 6 starts in the Genk 11, substituted 3 times. He got 1 goal, which was the second last game. No other assists. So, and his game time, 34 minutes, 77, 78, 90, 64 minutes, 67, 26, 62. So when he has been picked in the team, he has been in most of the games. He's been given plenty of opportunity. But for me, for a winger, for a supply line, even though there is 9 games there, 1 goal and no assists is probably a poor return. But he's one of those ones that you could potentially develop. Okay, we'll move on then to Alfie Chang, 22 years old. He went to Warsaw with George Hall, didn't he?
Before I give my kind of spiel about it, I'll give a definitive answer before. Definitely keep him on the books, Alfie Chang. I think he's one for the future. I think I kind of give him the same feedback as I did for George Hall in terms of if you want to nurture your young players and get the best talent, I think you have to keep him around. And I really like Alfie Chang, that kind of centre mid who breaks up play, gets stuck in, quite aggressive. He actually scored for Warsaw last weekend.
Against Chesterfield, isn't he? He was in the playoff semi, second goal, in
the playoff semi-final. So I'm a big fan of Chang, and again, coming back to that point, Dad, which I really want to hammer home because I think it's so crucial. If you want to develop the best talent, you have to keep them on the books. And we've had a history of selling our good young players, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think that those days are over now, and we need to keep hold of them. And again, is Alfie Chang ready to break into the Blues first team? We have Paik, we have Iwata, we have Mark Leonard. I don't think he is, but he's young. He's hungry and he's worth keeping around. And even if we loan him out again for another season just to get more experience at League One, League Two, maybe Warsaw again if they get promoted. Who knows what happens there? And maybe he has some League One experience. Who knows what the future holds for Alfie Chang? But I think definitely worth keeping him on the books.
Yeah, he's another young one. I think our club and all clubs now we see him as players, but the club see him as assets, and they will need to develop those assets. He's young enough to develop further. He had a terrible injury, hasn't he? He's another player that's been sort of had a really, really bad injury, had a very little game time. We sent him out to Warsaw. Now, he hasn't played that much, to be honest. I think he's not been in the squad and I think this is maybe because Matt Sadler, the manager, had a settled squad and they were doing well when he first went there in January. And as we know, they went off the ball, but he's played the last 5 games. And basically, in most of those games, he's played 3/4 of the games. In total, he's only been in the squad 6 times. Or 7 if you count the playoff semi-final. Starting 11 4 times, substituted 2. So he's had very little game time, but it does appear because all of his games now are coming towards the end of the season. He's played the last 5 in the starting lineup. So it tells you that maybe Matt Sadler's identified him as a decent player, whereas before he was probably had his settled team. So for me, Alfie Chang again, another one I'd like to see us keep. Put out on loan, and I think that in order to get into our starting lineup, it's tough anyway. But why not add a bit more value onto these players? See what they can. You never know; they might surprise us, and become a really, really decent player. Next, Matt, we have Brandon Khela, went to Bradford.
I think
20 years old. Sorry, 20 years old.
I think Brandon Khela is a really exciting one for the future, Dad. I really like him. He's a bit more versatile. He can play centre mid. He can play left back.
Yeah.
He can play in a couple of positions, and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. Again, same category as George Hall and Alfie Chang for me. Again, developing your young talent, you want to keep hold of them. Again, we have Cochrane. If we use the left back as an example, Cochrane, Buchanan, Mung Jae Lee, and I think we have good competition there. Would he break into that team? I don't think he would if everyone was fully fit. But again, with his age, with his experience, I like Brandon Khela. I'd like to see him stay at Blues. And again, I think maybe loan him out to Bradford again. Let him have the step up in League One. He's a club he's familiar with. They clearly like him. He was there on the pitch when that madness kicked off in the last minute of the game at home at Bradford, which looked amazing. He's clearly popular there. Why not another season at Bradford?
Yeah, he's impressed me. I mean, when I've seen him earlier in the season, when he played those few cameo appearances in the cups, for his age, he's he's got a good frame, a good physical frame, so he doesn't get pushed about on the pitch either. And he scored that fantastic goal against Charlton. Do you remember
Stonker, wasn't
the
it?
absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant
yeah.
game that got us through the
About 30 yards out or something. That was
yeah.
an absolute stonker.
Yeah, there's something about him I really like.
Same.
I hope we don't sell him. Um, but he's done well at Bradford, and I think they'll be keen to take him. I do, maybe on a permanent basis. He's been in their squad 22 times. Now Bradford have done very well this season.
Yeah.
22 times, been the starting 11 times, and substituted 4 times, on the bench 7. He's got a couple of assists to his name, and he does play. When he does play, he plays a lot of game time, so he's playing most of the minutes when he's actually getting picked. So they do think a lot of him there, and I think this is one of the loans that have developed one of our players.
Yeah.
You could argue that George Hall, Alfie Chang, Yokoyama haven't had enough game time. This you can't argue. Bradford have given Brandon Khela plenty of game time. He's got all that first team experience now.
That's what you want when you send a player on
yeah.
loan, to get experience. That's the whole point of the process, isn't it?
So for my personal opinion, I think again it's another one of these I'd like to see us develop and see what he can do in the club, add a bit more value onto him, and then maybe in 12, 18 months, have a look at him, see where we are, and then make a decision on him.
Agreed.
But I do think there'll be demand for him, because I think you can't argue with his stats in terms of his game time. And what Bradford have done. I think Bradford will come in for him, but we'll see what happens with him.
I think, Dad, Brandon Khela, Alfie Chang, and George Hall are in that same camp for me. I think Brandon Keller's the most exciting of them all, just in my personal preference. I like his frame, as you said, that his build, his physicality. But those three are in that mould for me of keeping your young talent, developing them, and either getting a good price for them. That's part of business sometimes in football. The club sees them as assets, or even better, they break into the first team and have a real crack at it. So they push the club on even further. So I think we've got one last final one, haven't we, to discuss?
Yeah, and this is last but not least, and this is Romelle Donovan, 18 years old. We know he went on loan to the Brentford B team, and they did initially put an offer of £5 million in for him, which we rejected, but then we allowed him to go out on loan. Now, I don't know what the deal is there with him, whether they have an option to buy. Some places I read there is an option to buy, other places I'm not so sure. But what's your thoughts on him?
I mean, £5 million at age 18, that's a lot of money, isn't it? But I mean, again, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I've heard he doesn't actually want to play for Birmingham. So as in there was a little bit of stuff behind the scenes where he maybe kind of forced it through, as opposed to us kind of really wanting it. So again, I don't know the fine details of that. If that is the case, I'd rather him be gone. I don't want anyone at our club who doesn't want to be here, and that goes for anyone. Even if Clara suddenly said he didn't want to be here, I'd rather get rid of him. I don't want anyone at our club, Dad, who doesn't want to play for the badge.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then I would want to sell him. However, if that isn't the case, and that's just rumours and talk, then from his ability and his age, you got to keep hold of him. You got to, in my opinion, that this comes back to the exact same conversation we've been having, and the theme of this conversation, Dad. If you want to nurture your best talent, I mean, Donovan's got to be up there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And he's exceptional. He played that game, a couple of games under the Rooney era. He came on. He clearly didn't have the physicality because he's a young lad, but he had the tenacity, he had the drive, he had the bit between his teeth, no doubt about it. And if you see some of the goals he scored at his level, at his age, it's absolutely outstanding. So I have no doubt Romelle Donovan is a ridiculously talented football player, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with him. If everything's all good and rosy, I would say you've definitely got to keep hold of him, nurture him. Again, either sell him for a big fee a little bit later down the line, or keep sending him out on loan to get a bit more experience. But I even thought, Dad, he might have featured in Chris Davis's team this season. Because remember in the pre-season when we played sort of Solihull Moors and a few of the friendlies, Donovan featured, I thought he looked really good.
Yeah.
Clearly, Chris Davies sees it differently, which is, he's the manager. Of course, the buck stops with him. But exciting talent for the future. If everything's all good, definitely keep hold of him.
Yeah, and the research I've done on him is he's done exceptionally well in the Brentford B team. He's scored goals. I think he scored 2 braces, 2 lots of 2, and the feedback from the fans, they think he's an exciting player. Now Brentford have got they're renowned for their sort of development of players, which I think is probably why he went there. So some of the comments I'm seeing from their fans, they're absolute class. Fantastic player. There's lots of really positive vibes coming from what I've done my research. It's not easy to research the results because there's not a lot of data about B team results. I've looked on their website and all sorts. I can see their results, but it doesn't give you much about the games. But overall, the feedback is that that's been exceptionally successful. Now, don't forget, if we rejected 5 million, then if Blues do want to sell him, then we're going to expect more than 5 million for him.
Yeah.
But he's another one of those players that if you develop, how much could he be worth if you keep him and maybe loan him out?
I know it's a ridiculous comparison there, but look at Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
You're talking 100 million. So again, who knows what the future holds for Romelle Donovan? But this is the thing: is if you're a smart club and a smart business, you get the most value for your money, for your assets. And what does that mean for Romelle Donovan?
It does question the club's sort of the way the club now want to move forward with the academy. They've gone to the ends of the earth to get us to Category 1. But what does that now mean for the development of these players? Do we look at those players, the Alfie Changs, the George Halls, the Romelle Donovans, and do we think, well, do we really sell them now? Or is there more opportunity to keep them for maybe another year, develop them a bit further, maybe get a little bit more? Because I could see Romelle Donovan possibly going out on loan. Because you don't forget, before he went to Brentford B, he had a really unsuccessful spell at Burton.
Yeah.
He was at Burton for the first half of the season and he didn't get very little game time over there. So obviously he weren't getting game time at Burton. So does that tell us a story as well? Is he not quite ready just yet? Who knows? But yeah, I agree with you. If we can, we can't really lose too much, really, because if he doesn't want to play for us, then, like you said,
exactly.
the door's already closed then. Because there's no point in having a player that doesn't want to play for us.
Exactly.
But if we are going to sell him, then get as much as we can for him. But I would like to see him come back and maybe put him out on loan to another team, see if he can get a bit more game time.
Yeah, that'd be the dream scenario.
Yeah, so in all those players that we've looked at, Matt, there's very few there that that have actually really had exceptionally good loans. Is there successful loans? I don't think really.
Brendan Khela?
Yeah, he's probably been the one out of all of them that's had the most successful loan spell. The rest of them, some of them out of injuries, just bit parts, and some of them have been quite disastrous, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what we think, Birmingham City supporters. That's our players that have gone out on loan, and we'd love to know your thoughts as always. And do you think, from what we said, or maybe some of your own thoughts about whether there's a way back to the first team at Birmingham City for any of these players, either into the future, or do you think we should maybe look at cutting our losses with some of them and moving them on? But as always, please put your comments below, and me and Matt are always glad to read those. If you did like this podcast, as always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't checked us out on our social media channels already, pop along to our X page and our Instagram page. And if you like to watch or listen to your podcast on Spotify, you'll find us on there as well. And you'll see the handles appearing on the screen for all of these channels right now. If you haven't subscribed already and you'd like to, then press that big red subscribe button. And if you'd like notifications, there is a little bell icon next to the subscribe button, which means that every time we publish a podcast, you'll get a notification on your device or your phone. So that's it for this podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. And myself and Matt will see you on the next one, all about Birmingham City.